Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Meet the Author. I have a repeat guest today. Everyone say hello to Kandi Steiner. Kandi, thank you so much for jumping on with us again today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be back.
It's been a little less than a year since the last time I've talked with you, and you've had a lot of life changes. I think, we can start off with the big thing. You are pregnant now.
I'm
That's
pregnant.
what's happened for you.
Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind. We found out that we were pregnant like 3 days after Thanksgiving. My family was in town and I was so tired. Like, I have just never felt that tired in my life. And I kept saying it out loud. I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just really struggling. I'm so tired. And my husband was like, this is not like you because I usually thrive when we have family or friends over. I'm an extrovert. I love to host and I'm very much like, let's go do things and let's, whatever. And I was just beat. And when he said that, it like triggered something in my mind. And I was like, wait, this really isn't like me. So I went to the bathroom and I was like, I'm just going to take a test. I was not even late yet. I think my period was due in like 2 days. And
Mhm.
so I was like, it's probably nothing, but I don't know. Something gave me a nudge. And it was funny because we had been trying for a couple months. And so every time I would take a test, I would record myself just in case it was the time. And this
Mhm.
was the one time I didn't record myself because I was just like, I'm sure I'm overreacting. And then I like looked at it and gasped and just like had a moment to myself where I wanted to have a moment for just me knowing. And then again, I meant to record Jack when I told him, but no, I didn't. I just like called him into the bedroom and like held up the stick and I was like, "Look." And he was like, "Oh my gosh." And then we just like hugged and cried and I told my mom immediately. I had no chill. I know everybody like waits and does these really cute reveals, but I was just like texting and calling people because I was so excited. But yeah, so that was back in November, and it has been a wild ride since because the first trimester was very tough on me. I was very sick and very tired. The second trimester has been lovely so far. So that's been really nice. And I'm starting to feel her a lot now. Like for the last couple of weeks, she's moving around like crazy. So that's been really exciting.
That's so awesome. I'm getting so excited for you. And it's honestly the timing is like you wanted to get that video, get that reaction, but it's so much more probably personal to you guys now. It's like, you know what? We didn't have to act in front of a camera or anything, and like it's just something that's that moment for you too. And I think that's special.
Totally, and I did take one video, like, after I found out before I told Jack, but I took it as if I was talking to, like, my baby, and I was just like, "I just took a test, like, right now you and I are the only ones who know," and yada yada. So I kinda saved that, and my husband loves photography, so he's been taking pictures throughout my pregnancy, and we just kind of, like, have like an album that we've stored away. But for the most part, yeah, we didn't do, like, a gender reveal. We found out the gender from a blood test and we were sitting on the couch and just like looked at the results together and we both kind of had a sneaky suspicion it was a girl anyway, so we were like, yes, it's a girl. My husband is like super stoked to be a girl dad, so I think he's going to be an amazing girl dad, so we're both really excited.
I was gonna ask, is he the type that's like full in like, yes, I have a girl, I can't wait.
Yes, so he grew up with 3 older sisters, and he's the only boy. So he's always been around a lot of girls, and he just, like he thrives in that sort of environment, like, he's not the kinda guy that is gonna be, like, macho and, like, testosterone running and all of that, so he was excited to have a girl, but he has, like, put some parameters in place as far as, like, not getting a bunch of pink stuff and, like, things like that, which I'm okay with. I love pink, but I didn't want, like, a ton of pink stuff either. So we're very much on the same page. But he thinks like I think he thinks it's going to be so chill, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to be besties and whatever." And I'm like, "I don't think you understand that she is going to have you wrapped around her finger." But okay, we'll see what happens.
As someone who my dad, I found out way later, like, was not the most excited at first to have a girl. Like, he wanted a boy, and then my brother is younger than me. But I had him wrapped around my finger. Like, everyone knew that if you asked, like, who my dad's favorite was, child, you're not supposed to have a favorite, but they would
No.
be like, no, it's you. Like, it's 100% you. And my brother, like, fully accepted it. He was like, I know that your dad's favorite. Like, it's fine.
Oh, I love that. It's
He,
so
like,
sweet.
fully embraced being a girl dad. Was at like my dance recitals and I played volleyball. So he was like the most competitive dad at volleyball games. He had like cutouts of my face that he
Oh
would
my
like fill up with, like the most extra.
See, so okay, so this is like the perfect segue into learn your lesson because I'm sure when you were reading and when I was writing it, like the girl dad energy and the daddy P relationship with Ava was just everything for me. So like
Thing.
did
No.
you love it as like someone who like is super close with your dad?
Yes, no, and I was gonna bring that up even just like 5-10% into the book, you can just tell already like how attached, like obviously kid like dads love their kids, but
Sure.
like the respect and like how he like raises her and stuff like that, that so many times I feel like and you portrayed it so well that you read books and it's like, okay, kids, but the kids seem like very childish. And
Mm.
I mean, again, they're children, but it was like she was like her own little adult, like already fine.
Yes.
This whole child and she's doing all this stuff and they like talk normally, they don't baby talk and everything, and I just loved it so much because it's like no, he raised a girl that he respects and she respects him back, and it was the cutest thing.
Oh my gosh, I love that you picked up on that because I definitely have that mindset. Like I have two nephew or well, gosh, now I have three nephews and a niece. Now that Jack and I are married, and with all of my nieces and nephews, I don't baby talk. Like I talk to them like we're normal, and I always have. And we have such good relationships. Like my nephews and I are super close, and they will call me anytime that they want to talk about things. And I just always have kind of felt like if you treat them like they're not adults, so not saying treat them like an adult, but just treat them like a human and not like a baby, that they love that and respond to that, at least in my family. So when I was writing this and it was my first time writing a single dad, and I was just thinking about who Will is as a person, and I was like, there's no way that he is going to like baby talk her or anything like that. And then Chloe, who is her teacher and becomes the nanny, picks up on that too, and she's like, oh, okay, Ava doesn't respond to what I refer to as like my teacher voice, right? Like she responds to me talking to her as if she's my friend. And yeah, so Ava was just like her own little personality, which I absolutely loved writing.
No, it was so cute. And again, like you said, Chloe picks up on it so fast and she's like, okay, she responds to this best. And it's like, even, the chef is like, has their like own little cute dynamic, but everyone just like goes in and treats her as, not, again, not as an adult, but like she's her own human and you don't have to like downplay anything to her. And I laughed so many times. Like, I think one of the scenes that I highlighted so much was she's like telling him about, which slight spoiler, but it's not a big spoiler. Like, it's cute. You go look for it. Okay. When she's like telling him about how she learned to rhyme and she
Yes.
like picks the word and then she's like, and dad's favorite word is and just like does it. And Chloe's like, interesting. But like even how he disciplines her, the fact that he's like push-ups,
Yes.
does the push-ups in like perfect form, 5 push-ups, gets up and he's like, okay, that's an adult word, don't use that. And she's like, yes, sir. And just like
Yeah.
goes their business. I was like, this is the most perfect thing ever.
I love that scene. And Chloe knows, like, when he gives her the word, she's like, you are asking for it. Like, you know what she's gonna come up with. It was so, oh, I love them. And I like it all, their dynamic changes, right? From the beginning of the book. Like you see it from the very beginning. Ava's kind of like she is just like her father, emulates his behavior big time. And so it's like you can tell she's a kid and she wants to laugh and she wants to smile and she wants to do these things, but she's like, well, dad doesn't do that stuff. So like, I'm not going to like, I'm cool like dad. And she just like looks up to him so much. But then as she's around Chloe, she sees a different example of an adult who is very smiley and playful and laughs all the time. And then we see this slow progression of Ava sort of stepping into who she is naturally, which is a cross between them, right? Like she still has that same sort of like mature, I guess, behavior and personality, but she's still a kid. Like she's still a little girl. And so she loves her favorite pop stars and like dressing up and going to Disney World. And we get to see that kind of, come to life. So I love that.
No, I think it's a perfect example too of like grumpy sunshine, like done right. Because like Will, obviously, like Daddy Pete, we've known he's so grumpy
Yeah.
from the get go. We knew he was gonna be grumpy, and then comes in this like sunshine kindergarten nanny, and it's like she does stuff, and he's kind of like okay, and you can see, and like at the start, Ava's not smiling, but then she's like. All these times that Chloe's like watching her, and she's like, I can tell she wants to smile. Like, I'm gonna get her to smile. Like,
Yes, she's so determined and she's like, it's my mission for both of them. Like, I'm going to get them to smile. I'm going to get them to laugh. Like, it will happen.
no, I love it. I think it's amazing. And I enjoyed the heck out of this. For people who maybe, okay, have not heard yet are like, what are they talking about? What is going on? Run us back a little bit through this series. We'll start off with the first book and kind of just what we don't have to go into too details. The books have been out for a while, but just what we have so far. This is obviously book 3, so just kind of walk us through, okay, the progression that we got to now learn your lesson.
Happy to. Okay, so this is my Kings of the Ice series. We have 3 books out, and there are 3 more coming eventually. So they're all complete standalones. You do not have to read any of the other ones to understand. You can jump into book 1, 2, or 3 without reading anything else. So if Single Dad's your jam, but I talk about these other 2 and you're like, I'm not really interested in those, don't worry about it. You don't have to read them, but you should. So, so book 1 is Vince and Maven, and Vince is the hot new rookie player in Tampa, and Maven is assigned kind of as like an influencer slash modern day reporter to follow him 24/7, complete access on and off the ice. So she ends up living in his building downtown with him. She travels to the games with him. She goes to every home game and kind of immerses herself in his life for a month. They kind of have an enemies to lovers vibe, more so like she's annoyed by him and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get her. So but there's a lot of like fiery passion between them, a lot of chemistry that eventually kind of like comes to a head. Very fun, very spicy. And then in book 2, you get Vince's brother's sis. Wow, baby brain. Vince, Vince's sister, Grace, and his teammate, Jackson. That is book 2. So it's a, brother's best friend slash brother's teammate situation. And so they meet on a party bus the night that they're celebrating Vince Tanev winning a trophy. Okay. And like she's such a fireball and kind of like teasing him and kind of like, oh, you kind of like me, huh? And he's like, you are literally my teammate's little sister. I have to set boundaries, but he's so intrigued by her. They spend the whole night together. They have so much fun. And then flash forward 6 weeks later, she shows up at her brother's house, heartbroken over some stupid boy that she didn't even really care about, but it's more so just like her life is kind of in shambles. And he cannot resist trying to make her feel better, and it ends up with them on a road trip for the summer. So it's secret, nobody knows about it, they're keeping it under wraps, and he does it under the pretense of like, we're friends, I'm just trying to help you out and like make you feel better. But of course things start to get hot and heavy between them, and there's a scene in that book, the keychain scene, where everything kind of breaks down and the rules are broken. And so that's book 2.
Back here somewhere on my bookshelf for that specific scene.
Yes, I love it. That scene was so fun to write. And all of these books have been so fun for me as an author, just because I love hockey, first of all. I'm putting every trope that I love into these books. So like Brother's Best Friend is one of my favorites. I love an enemies to lovers kind of forced proximity vibe. And now I got to write my first single dad romance. So you meet Daddy P in book 1. You see him a lot in book 1 and book 2. And you kind of have his story building. Like in book 1, you find out he's like this grumpy goalie, but he's like a leader on the team. He's very much someone who keeps the guys in line and everybody looks up to. And then in book 2, you start to get the storyline that he's looking for a nanny and having such a hard time finding someone he can keep, because every girl that he hires has like ulterior motives, like they want to try to seduce him or they're not good at their jobs. And he's like, why is this so hard? And so it sets it up for book 3, which is him kind of hiring his daughter's kindergarten teacher to be the nanny, because she steps in so effortlessly after like a freak accident happens and the Ava's nanny just like doesn't show up to pick her up from school, and Chloe steps in and it's like effortless. And so Will's like, oh my God, can I hire you? Like immediately. And she ends up moving into the pool house. And so there's a lot of forced proximity, grumpy sunshine, definitely like that forbidden element because she's the nanny and stuff. So it's been so fun, and I have just loved writing this series and kind of building up who the next character is. So when you read Learn Your Lesson, you'll also find out about who the next like upcoming characters are, and I'm sure you could guess who they are just by reading them. But that's what's so fun about writing the interconnected standalones in a series, is you kind of get teased along the way.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, you don't have to read them in order, but recommend you do that, especially, for book 2. I just don't think it has the same effect
Yeah.
if you don't know all of like how Vince is and stuff, and then you go and it's like, oh, baby says, oh, okay. It's like,
Yes. Yes, especially because like you get the sneak peeks of Vince like when his sister comes around in book 1, and he's so protective of her. They're super close, they're friends, and then when his teammates meet her, he's like, "Don't get any ideas, like, that's my baby sister."
Literally, his inner dialogue is like, "Don't look at her." Actually,
Don't look at her.
look the other way. And then you see, especially I think I love because at the end of book 1, you actually get to see like Vince's perspective of like them meeting, and he's kind of like, "Wait, mm, I
Yeah.
I'm gonna worry about that later." And then it's like book 2, and it's like their perspective of your meeting, and you're like, "Oh gosh."
Yeah, you should have worried about it a little bit.
Should have been a little bit more worried. Should have
Yeah.
slightly more attention. So how has this been writing your first single dad romance? What did you feel like you had to not necessarily like I don't know, research, but like what did you decide to do? A, just to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is how it's gonna go. Like what was that process like when you decided that this was the trope that you were going to do for this book?
Yeah, so I outlined this series before I started writing book 1, so I knew along the way what was coming. And so I knew, just because I know our readers right now, we're all loving single dad romance, right? It's just like we're in that era. So I had a feeling that this was going to be the one that people wanted. And I think that was the hardest part, was like letting go of what I thought maybe readers wanted from me or what they were expecting, and just writing it the way that I would, because I've heard a lot in reviews of people saying like, this was a new fresh take on this trope, or like, I've never read a XYZ trope this way. And I think it's just because I don't read typically a lot of what I'm about to write, so that I'm not like accidentally influenced by anything. And so for me, writing a single dad romance, I was like, yes, that's a trope, it's part of it, but I'm just going to write authentically who he is and who his story is and who Chloe is and what her story is. I wasn't like, oh, I need to make sure I have this in there or that in there. But I had to turn off that part of my brain that's like, oh, are my readers going to like this? Is this, I don't know, is this playing into the trope? Is this what they like about the trope? And just trust my gut that I was doing what I wanted to do and needed to do for him, for Will, and for Chloe.
Mhm.
Um, but it was, I think, like the hardest part was writing about sort of his past, because he has like, the mother of his child is not like, they were married, but it's not like she was the love of his life. It's not like he's devastated over her. He has really complicated grief, because it was like a good friend of his, someone he would even say was like a best friend. They were just like always buddies. And then they would hook up every now and then just for fun. And then one time she got pregnant, and they were just like, we should just get married. It'll be easy. We can do the mom and dad thing. Like, we love hanging out with each other, and it's going to be fine. And then she ends up dying like 2 months after having Ava. And so now he's a single dad, and he's processing the grief of losing his partner that like he didn't necessarily like, he wasn't overly in love with, but he loved in the sense of like, he cared so deeply for her, and they had such a good relationship. So that part was kind of tough to write around and kind of put on page, but I think it came together so beautifully, and it works so well in this world, especially with Chloe and her situation and just the way that they vibe together. So I was really happy with how it came out.
No, I think it worked like out beautifully. And like you said, he is deep, like you see a different side of him in this because obviously, again, all the other sides, it's like he's a leader and he's very much in charge, but he's very grumpy and it's like all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And now you get to see this other side of him that it's like, okay, this is why, because he's had to deal with a lot of the stuff and he wasn't in love with her, but like loved her, in a friendship, but even a little bit more like not an in love sense. But then he also was like dealing with the fact that he never got to tell her that. And so he's like
Yes.
struggling with a lot of things. It's just like grief and remorse, of like, oh, what could have I done? Those types of things. And so I think you handle that so well. But you're not, and I can say this now very strongly since the last time we talked, because I read your book that makes people want to throw it across the room.
Uh oh.
You know what I'm talking about too.
I
You
do.
you are not a stranger to having to write hard, difficult things sometimes to talk about. And I
True.
think you nailed it in this book. But I feel like even way back when, yes, I'm talking about a love letter to whiskey. You have done this.
Yeah.
What is that like for you? Like having to go and being like, okay, yes, these are romance books, but I'm gonna hit some of these harder topics or more challenging things. What is that like for you deciding to go and to do those things?
Yeah, I have just like naturally been like this as a writer my whole life, and I think it's because So this is kind of weird, but back in the day when I was studying in high school and college, I actually primarily wrote nonfiction romance. Like I loved to write, or not romance, sorry, just like nonfiction. So I love to write about my experience growing up and like my family dynamics and themes of like addiction and abuse and things like that. And so I already just leaned into writing highly emotional, highly triggering topics. And then when I got into writing romance, I just found myself gravitating toward wanting to write about this kind of gut-wrenching feeling that I was experiencing as a young and new adult dating. Like all the games that I played with guys in high school and college and the my friends were playing games and like, it's just like you would sit down, you'd go out with your girls or you'd sit down for a girls' night in and hear these and you would want to like rip your hair out because you hear these stories of what's going on and you're like, does he like you or does he not? Because it seems like he likes you, but then he'll like be seen with another girl, but then he's texting you at 2 a.m. saying how much he likes you. And then like you're everything to him. And then a week later he ghosts you and you don't hear from him and yada yada. So I felt very pulled to writing about those sort of emotions. And as I've gotten older and my relationships, thankfully, have gotten a lot more stable and a lot less toxic, I still find myself drawn to writing like deeper emotions and characters who have been through things and sort of like, yes, they're falling in love, but they're falling in love while also dealing with things in their personal life. And I just love exploring that and like what it takes for two people to be in the right place to fall in love and have the right care for each other because it's not always easy. I don't know if you or any listeners can identify with this, but sometimes you meet someone and you may have a great chemistry and potentially they could be someone that you could have a great relationship with, but you meet at the wrong time in your life. Either they are not healed from something they've gone through, or you're not the best version of yourself, or whatever the case may be, and it just doesn't line up. It takes so much for two people to meet, have an attraction, fall in love with each other, and also be in a place where they can treat each other with respect and kindness that you need to bring to a relationship. So I just really love exploring that.
No, I think that's awesome. And I actually, my fiance and I are one of those people, we met, we tried to do the whole dating thing. And I always like to say, and he's heard me say this, but he's been the best and the worst relationship in my life. Like in
Oh,
with certain aspects, like I've been cheated on by everybody but him. So like taking that aside, but like when we first met, we're super young, both just got cheated on. So we like were not good communicators. And so we did the whole like talking, thing, but we played the games, did all the stupid stuff and then we just like no contacted each other for several months,
oh my
decided to come back
gosh.
and then decided, you know what, we're just going to be friends, but like I want this person in my life, but we're not going to date. We tried that, didn't work out. So then we were friends for a while. I dated someone else, he dated someone else, didn't like those feelings, finally got back around. And like since we were like, you know what, I think we've like healed from our past traumas, like we've worked on ourselves a little bit more, we feel better. And like since we've been together for almost 4 years, getting married. Like
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh. Okay, so you really understood a love letter to whiskey. Like that hit hard.
I would sit there and I would see like I always explained that book when I was trying to tell a friend to read it. And I was like, okay, think about a door. And it's like, this is the way that you go. And like, as a reader, and every time she goes the other way.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
why?
Oh, I loved writing that book too. And it's so special to me. I could never rewrite it. It's just like one of those things that happened at the right time in the right space as a writer. And I don't know, everything just happened the way it happened. And I love writing angsty books. I've written many since then, and I plan to write a lot more, but I could never write another A Love Letter to Whiskey. So it makes me so happy that people are discovering it now too. Like I posted about the other day. My rank was in like the 100s and I couldn't figure out what was going on, but I guess people are talking about it on TikTok and I'm like, "Oh my god, this makes me
It
so
keeps
happy."
circulating. Like, every few months, it just comes back up. And I'm just like, for the longest time, I was like, I need to read this book. I need to read this book. But I was so scared to read the book because I was like, I'm so scared of how I'm gonna feel. And finally I was like ripping the band-aid off, I'm gonna do it, read it in like a day.
Oh
And then
my
I was like, now I understand why people are talking about this because it's so good, but it's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating. I get tagged in so many things where people are like, I have never wanted to throw a book across the room as much as this one. I wanted to light it on fire. I wanted to throw it into traffic. But at the same time, I need every special edition. I need a coveted spot on my shelf. Like I love it, but I hate it. And I think that's the best way to describe this book is like if it if I can evoke any kind of emotion in you that's that powerful, then I'm happy as an author. So like I don't need it to be all positive. I'm totally okay with frustrating you.
Yeah, and I think that, nails it on the head with that book. And just like in general, again, like how graceful your writing is, I want to say, because you immerse readers again so easily. Like going back to, I mean, this book, you feel so deeply with the characters and you're like wanting to connect to them and you're wanting them to kind of work through this and you like want Will to get his happy ending and you want him to finally find that love and like feel at peace. And even in the second book, Watch Your Mouth, that whole book, I could not put like the entire time. I was like so obsessed
Oh.
because just like the tension that's just like building, building, building. I was like, when is it gonna explode? When is it like you're just so dialed in and like
Oh
how
my
to like kind of torment each other, be around each other and try to persuade the other one. It's like, no, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be so
God.
good.
Dude, I love Watch Your Mouth. I'm such a sucker for road trip romance and like best friend's brother or brother's best friend or any sort of combination of that. And so this was like crack to me when I was writing. I was like so obsessed too. So I love that you were also into it.
For Learn Your Lesson, was this your first book that you've written since you've been pregnant or like worked on since you've been pregnant?
Yeah, so I was almost done writing False Start when I found out I was pregnant. So I was kind of wrapping that one up, but this was the first book that I started and finished while pregnant. So it was like the whole gamut of emotions. And it was so hard at first because I was supposed to start writing like December 1st, like right after the Thanksgiving holiday. And I was so sick and so tired. And I could never have expected the way the first trimester would impact me.
Mhm.
And so I think in December, I wrote maybe 3 or 4 days. And the rest of the days that I was supposed to write, I just couldn't. It's like the story was in my mind. It was all I could think about. All I could think about was Will and Chloe and Ava and getting their story out. And I was like feverishly taking notes on my phone about stuff I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. But I didn't have the energy to sit down and do my best writing. And I'm very picky about that. Like if I sit down and it's a little bit of a struggle to get started, but I get going and then I feel great, then I will keep going. But I'm not going to force myself to write on a day that I don't feel it because then it won't be good. It won't feel good to me. It won't feel good to the reader. I don't ever want that to be an experience. So flash forward to January, like middle of January, I start feeling a lot better. And this book just starts pouring out of me. I was like, okay, I've been ruminating on it now. I've like been set back word count wise, but story wise, I am like in it. And
Mhm.
so I was having super high word count days. I was just like living and breathing this story every time I sat down on my computer. And by the time I finished it, it was like 108,000 words, I think, or 110. And I sent it to my beta readers and was like, hey guys, it's really long. Like, let me know if there's anything that I should cut. I just got so obsessed with them. I think I went a little overboard. And all my feedback was like, no, we want more. We want more of this. We want more of this scene. Can you add this scene? Can you whatever? And so it ended up at like 120,000 words. It's very long for me. And I just remember like I'm listening to the audio files now and I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm so glad that it's this long because every single scene, every single part of this is like in my mind epic and like so like I don't know, right for the story. So it's not just Will and Chloe, it's also Chloe and Ava and Will and Ava and it's also the girls from the hockey team, it's the guys from the hockey team, it's all these like found family things. So I don't know, it's everything that I love about reading. It's like full character immersion. So I'm so proud of the way it came out.
No, I think you again did amazing, especially like be proud of the fact that this is your first one that you like start to finish while you're pregnant. I mean, you'll remember that just because again, it's like your first one, and obviously you're writing more, doing more things, but just to say, like, I did it. It was hard sometimes. You probably didn't, have the best days every time, but you put it out. And I think I agree with you. I don't think there's any part that like, no, we don't like no, like we needed all of it good. Like it was important. It made the story what it is. And honestly, as a reader, like when you have an author that's like an auto-buy author, one that you love, like you're never gonna be like, oh, that was too long.
Yeah.
It's always like, can I have more, please?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's why I was like, I'm not going to stress about making this too long because if my editor for sure will let me know if there's something in there that needs to be taken out, and she didn't have anything in there, and I was like, okay, I think everything is instrumental. But when I got to the acknowledgments and I was writing everything out, I actually wrote a little part to my daughter and was just like, this is our first book that we wrote together. And like, cause it's so special. It's something I'll never forget. I journal a lot. And so right now I have switched from doing my normal journal and I'm doing a pregnancy journal. And I wrote a little note to her about that too. I was like, at this many weeks, we finished writing our first book together and, stuff like
That's so
that.
cute. I love that. You think you'll share that with her, like give the journal and stuff?
That's my hope. Like I mean, it won't be until she's older, right? Like I'm just going to kind of put it away, but my hope is that when she is thinking about a family, if she ever gets that point, if she doesn't want a family, that's okay too. But when she's older, I would love to just share it with her and be like, this is what happened when I was pregnant with you. And like now that you're old enough to kind of understand it, here you go if you want to read about it. Especially because like I have been asking my mom so many questions and some stuff she has, but like there's so much. She never took a picture when she was pregnant with me, or if she did, she doesn't know where they are. So we don't have any pictures of her pregnant. And I would ask her like, well, how did you feel around this week? And like, is this normal to feel? And she's like, I don't remember. It was like 34 years ago, So I'm just excited to kind of have that for her and for me. I will probably read it more than she will, but eventually one day she'll
I
read
think
it.
that's so sweet, honestly, and so special that you're doing that. And I'm sure, like, as a daughter, like, I have not been in your shoes yet, but I would still just like you. I'm. I already asked my mom literally everything, anyways. I'm like trying
Same.
to learn a roux recipe, and I'm like, do I do this or I? This is gonna make me sound really, but I did my taxes for the first time by myself last week, and I was like,
That's
oh,
impressive.
I was like, all right, you're not helping me this time. Like next to me, help. What do I do?
Yes. Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh, doing
do it
your own
on
taxes
your own.
is so tough. It's so tough.
Yeah, I was just like, I did it finally, and then I told my fiance, I was like, okay, we have to go out for margaritas because I can't. I
You
my
deserve it.
brain hurts,
You
but
deserve it.
my mom literally the whole time, it's like one thing's wrong, and I'm like, what do I do? So I
Oh
think
my
that she'll absolutely love that, and probably even ask her, if you tell her about it, want to read it even before like she's thinking about kids, and just to know what your mom was thinking like when you were pregnant. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, and maybe my friends too, like, I have so many friends who don't have kids yet, so if they get pregnant and they're like, "Is this normal?" I'll be like, "Let me consult my journal." Like, I think I went through this too, you know?
No, I think that's so special. That's so awesome. Well, obviously, we're getting close to wrapping things up here. So, your book, Learn Your Lesson, is not out yet. Tell everybody when it comes out, where they can find it, all the fun, exciting news.
Yes, so Learn Your Lesson comes out this Friday, April 19th. So depending on when you're listening to this, it might be right around the corner or be out already. It's coming out on the same day as the Tortured Poets department. So if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you can listen and get crushed by Taylor, and then read Learn Your Lesson and have fun with me. Go, spicy hockey romance. What more can you ask for? And then I have another release coming out in June that is called False Start. So if you are a big fan of the Red Zone Rivals series, if you read Blindside or Hail Mary or any of them and loved them, this is Kyle's story and it's super, super fun. I had a great time writing it. Kyle stole my heart. So that's one you can be looking forward to from me this summer.
I'm so excited. And you'll have these books will be on KU, and the paperbacks also stunning, especially for Learn Your Lesson. If you want a beautiful man on the cover, I think that you can kind of see it.
Yes, Daddy P.
He is a stunner.
Oh, I love it. And if you're an audio girly, I have to brag about the audiobooks for this whole series because it's duet narration. So the guy reads all the guy parts, the girl reads all the girl parts. So even if they're in like the other person's chapter, so when it comes to the banter and especially the spicy scenes, it is so hot. It's like you're in the room with them and like experiencing what's happening and they're performing together. It's so great. And Max Lindsay does Daddy P's voice. It's like so deep, baritone, delicious. And then Hannah Chiclana is our performer for Chloe. And she is like, she could not be more perfect for Chloe. So it's a great audiobook. I highly recommend if you're into audio.
I have the arc. I read the arc. I'll probably go back and listen to the audiobook because that just sold me. And I love my audiobooks, so I can
Yeah,
experience it in another way.
perfect. I love it.
Well, thank you so much again for jumping on and talking with me today, Kandi. Is there anything that I didn't ask that maybe you want to touch on really fast or just say to listeners right before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I would say is I love to hang out with readers online, and I especially love if you message me while you're reading and with your reading updates or tag me in your stories. I eat that up. So if you are on Instagram, I'm there as Kandi Steiner. I'm on TikTok as author Kandi Steiner. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Threads, like literally everywhere you are, I am. So come find me and let's hang out and we can be internet besties.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for jumping on today and talking with us. And everyone, make sure you're staying up to date on everything happening here at Michaela's Book Nook for more author interviews, book reviews, and more. And until next time, thanks, guys.
Bye.